One more video in the series, maybe two more. Speed Portuguese for complete beginners. Hi is oi. Okay, this is one building block, and I'm going to teach you to converse in the language by mixing and matching building blocks on a matrix. Okay, so oi is hi. So you go oi. My name. My is o meu. Name is nome. Is such and such. Oi, o meu nome é Tony. Okay, you can say oi, o meu nome é, and then put in your name. So means I am. G means from. Don't overthink that. Just know that think of it like pushing a button. If you push this button, it means I am, right? From G. So G, such and such place. You can say oi, o meu nome é Tony. Sou de Chicago. Okay, you put in your information. Right? I live is moro. Moro em such and such place. If you say você mora, it means do you live in such and such place? And if you take that verb and put it in the second person form of a question, in fact, I jumped ahead. First, I want to say você é question mark. That means you are, which means are you from? So you could say, Tony, você é de Chicago? Você é de, such and such place. I live is moro. Você mora em, all right? So ask me, Tony, você mora em Chicago? And I'm going to say, sim. Sim, moro em Chicago. If you don't live in Chicago and I asked you, você mora em Chicago? You could say, no. No. And then say, não moro em Chicago. Right? So that's what you do. You put no in front of a verb. I speak is falo. Okay, that's a verb. Verbs are the seeds of conversation. I speak Portuguese is falo português. If you want to say a little of Portuguese, you say falo pouco de português. So I speak a little Portuguese, falo pouco de português. Let that O be kind of an U sound. So falo, okay? Falo pouco de português. And then você, just like you made você mora with an A, you put A, and so moro, O becomes você mora, falo becomes você fala, with A. So you say, você fala português? You speak English, você fala inglês. Você fala inglês, right? Estudo means I study. Você estuda, right? If you take the verb in the first person, verb in the second person, it creates what I call instant conversation. Estudo português com Tony em YouTube. That's how you said, and estudo português com Tony em YouTube. Você estuda português com Tony em YouTube? Sim, estudo português com Tony em YouTube. Okay? Your verb timeline, which is where you start to organize verbs. Got to organize verbs in past, present, and future on a timeline. It's the easiest way to look at them and remember them. Falo means let's start with this. Moro means I live. Falo means I speak. And estudo means I study. So moro em Chicago, or wherever you live. I speak Portuguese. Falo português. And estudo português com Tony. Okay, so using your verbs as like the pivot point for the conversation. Morei is your past tense, so you're changing that O to EI. Morei. So if you lived in the Brazil, you would say morei no Brasil. So let's pretend you lived in Brazil. You'd say morei. No means in the. Lesson on it later. No, don't worry. Morei no Brasil. I live in Chicago now. Moro em Chicago. It's fine. Falei means I spoke. Therefore, estudei means I study, right? So you're just changing everything. The O to A, typical pattern. I spoke Portuguese today. Today is hoje. Falei português hoje. I studied Portuguese today. Estudei português hoje. This matrix allows you to say whatever you want to say. Estudei português hoje com Tony. Falei português hoje com Tony. Falei português hoje com Tony em YouTube because I left a comment or something. Okay. Estudei, so on and so forth. Look, if you say vou and then morar, kind of just open it up. Morar. You're saying I'm going. Vou means I'm going. And then morar is the requirement. It's the pattern for this. So morar. Vou morar. I'm gonna live in Brazil. It would be vou morar no Brasil. Right? I'm going to study. Vou estudar. I'm gonna study Portuguese, or I study Portuguese because is porque. So I study Portuguese because I'm going to live in Brazil. Estudo português porque vou morar no Brasil. I'm going to speak Portuguese. Vou falar português. Okay? This is a microcosm of language learning. You learn conversation, which is to say learn to say the things you need to say and let the patterns reveal themselves to you. As patterns begin to reveal themselves, we'll take the patterns, put them into a set, organized logical set, such as a verb timeline or some other tools that are like this, and the structure or the pattern, the grammar allows you to create further conversation. So it goes back and forth: conversation, structure, conversation, and so on and so forth. Leave a comment with your questions if you have questions or requests on certain types of videos. And yeah, you learn a language by speaking the language, and you can speak it by using a matrix. So I hope you like it, and